Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Tuesday, November 26th. Hopefully, everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 434 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. It's another day in Jetland and another day with a lot of news to discuss. We've got some Eric Mangini comments I want to get into, and we've also got Aaron Rodgers speaking for the first time today on the Pat McAfee show since the bye week. We'll break down some of his comments. He denied, basically said the athletic report, the recent reports, the bombshell reports that took place that came out over the bye week after the Joe Douglas firing are false. He still does not know if he's going to play in 2025, is undecided on that, and a couple other comments I want to get into from his interview today and things to look out for here the rest of the season into the offseason with Aaron Rodgers. As always, though, before we begin, let me tell you about our podcast partners, starting with our friends over at BetUS. Since we're talking more about potential head coach, general manager candidates, since we're talking about the future of this organization, let's take a look at the New York Jets' next head coach candidates, courtesy of BetUS. Ben Johnson at plus 200, Bobby Slowick plus 300, Mike Vrabel plus 300, Jeff Ulbrich at plus 400, and Bill Belichick at plus 500. If you want to get in on any of the next head coach betting action for the New York Jets, check out BetUS and use my link in the description of this video to get a 125% sign-up bonus on your first three deposits up to $2,000. Also, our friends over at SeatGeek, looking to get out to any awesome sporting events, looking to potentially get out or sell your tickets to the game this weekend, Sunday. Looking, if you're a Seahawks fan, to get out to this one on Sunday, because expect that building at MetLife Stadium to be full of Seahawks fans. Then check out SeatGeek. If you haven't used it before, and it's your first purchase, use promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. And this isn't just sports. You know the drill. Plays, concerts, shows, you name it, SeatGeek has it. Promo code Bubs on Sports. Subtract $20 from your first purchase. Also, our friends over at Huga House, you want the hat I'm wearing right now or any of their other awesome hats that they offer, use my promo code Bubs for 15% off any purchase and get yourself some Huga House swag. So let's get into today's podcast, episode 434. Appreciate you all so much for tuning in. For those tuning in on YouTube, as always, make sure to please like and subscribe, and appreciate every single one of you that tunes in, of course, on all the different audio podcast platforms. Make sure to leave this pod a 5-star review. Help support the channel, help support the pod here as we move on here in what has been a miserable 2024 season, but appreciate you all still riding with the pod here, because it's been rough to cover this team through 11 games this season. And the crazy part is we still have 6 more games to go. So there is a chance it gets even worse from here. But I want to get into Eric Mangini and Aaron Rodgers today are the two main stories here coming out of the bye week. We'll start with the Eric Mangini stuff because it's going to be a little quicker. Want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the Rodgers stuff. But Eric Mangini yesterday was on the herd with Colin Cowherd. And obviously, we've already talked about the potential Rex Ryan reunion. Rex Ryan is basically publicly lobbying for the New York Jets job. We played the radio clip last week when he was on ESPN New York with Barton Hahn talking about how, you know, he would be better than Gruden. He loves the Jets. He is a Jet. He wants to come back. If he gets an interview, he believes he'll get the job, all that stuff. He then went, I believe, part of my take the next day and spoke for another like 5 minutes about potentially getting the Jets job, wanting the Jets job, taking this talented roster and doing something with it. So Rex Ryan is publicly begging basically Woody Johnson and this front office are now begging Tannenbaum and company to at least bring him in for a hire, because they're the ones leading the search, of course, of the 33rd team that we learned yesterday, him and Rick Spielman. is begging them to give him an opportunity to interview for the job, and I believe he will. Now, Eric Mangini, on the other hand, while he's not lobbying for it, while he's not going on a coaching campaign like Rex Ryan is right now, he didn't shut the door on a possible reunion with the New York Jets. Here's the clip, little bit of a longer one, but we're going to play it, and then we'll discuss it on the other half.
So your name came up for the Jets opening. First of all, have a comment on that. Diana Rossini came out with it. Will you acknowledge it? I haven't talked to you about this yet. What do you make of the report?
Well, it would make sense, Colin, because I just sold my house in New Jersey. So that's typically how the NFL works is once you sell property, then you get an opportunity. Once you buy property, then you get fired. I think it was just part of an article. I obviously am not lobbying for the job, but I feel pretty good about what I did while I was there. I mean, we just had 3 of those guys that I coached go into the Jets Ring of Honor, and I think we were a smart, disciplined, tough team. I didn't realize they were getting the band back together, bringing Tannenbaum in. But it's, it's like any other situation. There's a lot of things that you can do with an organization from a vision and principle standpoint, and I feel good about what I did when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I still contend they have good players. I think they have the best corners in the league. I like their back. I like Garrett Wilson. I like their play. I think their O-line needs work, but I like their players. Do you?
Colin, I thought they were going to go. I thought they were going to win the division. I thought they were going to win it last year before Aaron got hurt, and then I thought they were going to win it this year. Look, I went through this with Brett, and we were 8-3 until Brett got hurt, and I thought it was going to be a similar trajectory with Aaron Rodgers, and it should be a similar trajectory that you've got. Look, he's not what he used to be, but he should make everybody around him better because of the things that he can do. And he took over for a situation that was arguably as bad as any situation in the league from a quarterback perspective. So naturally, you thought there'd be a jump there.
So there's Mangini yesterday talking about this report. Of course, it came out in Diana Rossini's athletic report, all that about potential names to consider here for the New York Jets. Of course, he talked about how he liked what he did here in his 3 seasons. Obviously, 2008 was one of the more unknown years in terms of what ifs if Favre doesn't get hurt, and the Jets obviously ended up collapsing, go 9-7 after starting 8-3 and missing the playoffs, which ultimately led to the hiring, of course, of Rex Ryan. Mangini was kind of the scapegoat. Rex comes in, as we all know, 2009 and 2010 were the last 2 seasons this team was relevant. And it was led by Rex. But yeah, I mean, Mangini talked about, look, he's not lobbying for it. Just sold one of his houses, actually, or his house here. I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think Mangini's coming back. I don't even know if they would give him an interview. I mean, similar to the whole Rex thing, Mangini, we talk about Rex being inexperienced, or not inexperienced, I should say, in terms of Rex not being like in the league in a long time, right? The last time Rex coach was 2016 was the last time he was a head coach. That's 8 years ago. Mangini, the last time he was a head coach, if you remember, of course, after the 3 years with the Jets, he went to Cleveland for 2 years. So that's 2010. So Mangini hasn't had a head coaching job. Now, he was the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers in 2015, but hasn't had a head coaching job since 2010, the last time the Jets made the playoffs. So as long as the Jets playoff drought has also been as long as Mangini's been out of the NFL with a job. So we talk about Rex having concerns about if he can catch up to the modern game, hasn't coached in 8 years, if his message would still get through to this current type of players, the way it ended in Buffalo. Really, for Rex, it's been 14 years since he's had success. The same questions would be had for Mangini, and even larger, because he only made the playoffs in his 1 year with the Jets, which was 2006. So the last time he even made the playoffs as a head coach, you'd have to go all the way back to 2006. So I wouldn't love this. I'm not on board really with bringing Mangini back. I'm not even fully on board with bringing Rex back. I know there's a lot of people out there, the Mangenius, all this stuff. I'm not. It's not going to happen. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on it. I think it's incredibly unrealistic. I wouldn't even say he's going to get a coaching interview. I don't even think he's going to get an interview. Maybe I'm wrong. especially with the connection with Tannenbaum. Maybe if he does seem somewhat interested, because he didn't rule the possibility out, but I wouldn't be on board with him coming in as a coach. I think I'd be more for Rex coming in over Mangini, especially the way it ended here. Woody kind of using him as a scapegoat. How's that whole relationship? Fast forward here to current day. There's some questions. I don't see it happening. However, if the Jets find themselves in a situation where they're looking for general manager candidates, guys aren't coming here, the list maybe is a lot shorter than they expected, there really is a level of guys not wanting to come here, I would not be opposed to bringing in Mangini from a front office perspective. I would be more opposed to bringing him as a head coach. But from a front office perspective, I would be probably more. I look at. I'm not in favor of bringing Mangini in, but if they had to bring him in, if they would to bring him in, I would probably be more in favor of them doing it in some sort of front office role because of the success he had with Tannenbaum with drafting players, right? DeBrickashaw Ferguson, Nick Mangold, Darrelle Revis, David Harris, Dustin Keller. Really, the last time we actually had a tight end that was consistently good, Leon Washington. All those guys played key roles. Heck, Revis is a Hall of Famer. Nick Mangold, one of the best centers of all time, one of the best centers of his generation. DeBrickashaw Ferguson, of course, a staple at tackle. So they drafted a lot of really good players. They were very good at evaluating talent. Mangini was a big part of that. So fast forward current day, would he still be good at that? Who knows? Of course, they did have the Vernon Goldstein miss, 2008, 6th overall pick, one of the biggest busts in Jets history, one of the biggest busts in NFL history. But there still was a lot of good. So I don't see it happening, but it's another name to, I guess, throw into the ring. In his 48 games with the Jets, went 23 and 25. It's .479 winning percentage, had the one playoff appearance, of course, in his first year in 2006. So that's the Mangini stuff. Don't see it happening. Really am not on board. Could maybe understand the front office position a little bit more, but I don't think Mangini is coming back anytime soon to this organization, but I guess we'll see. He did not close the door. Now, on to the real meat and potatoes of today's episode, and what matters probably a lot more than a comment Eric Mangini made on the Colin Cowherd on the Herd, is what Rodgers said this afternoon on Pat McAfee. So, of course, last week, and I always say this, the Jets can never suck in silence. Right? They just can't stink and nobody talk about them. They always stink, and then there's always bombshell reports. There's always drama. It's always a bunch of nonsense, right? Last year, they finished 7-10, and then boom, bombshell reports comes out. Rodgers is threatening to take coaches' cell phones, all this stuff. This team can never just stink in silence, go on with their day, go into the offseason. There's always got to be bombshell reports. There's always got to be nonsense. There's always got to be off-the-field stuff. And here we are again, somehow making headlines for a team that is on their bye week with a 3-8 record. You're on your bye week. Your record is 3-8. You should not even be talked about once the entire week. And somehow the Jets found themselves to be the lead story a couple days last week because of this bombshell report. So in response to the bombshell report, Aaron Rodgers post-bye week went on McAfee today, and basically everything that has been reported, whether it's from The Athletic, there's been a couple other outlets, a couple other reporters that have chimed in with things that they've heard around the organization. Basically, everything that was reported, Rodgers had to say the opposite. Now, there is a little bit of a longer clip here, or not really a longer clip, about a minute clip that I want to play because I think this is the most important takeaway from this interview. And this was Aaron Rodgers potentially playing in 2025. If you go to the Dianna Russini Athletic report, of course, Zach Rosenblatt as well involved. The initial report was he'll play in 2025, but not for the Jets. There was also a report in that report. There was also pieces of that said the Jets are potentially going to put Rodgers on IR. There's been some talks about potentially cutting him. Woody talking about Rodgers in week 4 to the coaching staff and potentially benching him, which all created a future in 2025 that the report stated Rodgers will play, but not for the Jets. Rodgers went against it. Here's what he had to say on his future, 2025 and beyond, which I believe is the most important thing to take away from this interview because it impacts the Jets here very, very soon.
as far as my future goes, I haven't told anybody in my life that I want to play in 2025 and not on the Jets. So that's 100% false. I actually said the opposite. You know, I said that I'm going to wait and see what happens with at the end of the season, and if they want me back, and what happens with Brick, and what happens with the offensive staff, and obviously the GM at the time, and then they just fired Joe. There's a lot of things out of my control when it comes to that. But I've really enjoyed my time in New York. I mean, obviously we haven't had success that we've all wanted to have, but I've made some great friendships on the team. I've enjoyed living in Jersey. I've enjoyed time in the city. I've enjoyed getting to know the fans. And I came here to win here. So I'm not jumping off ship, like, oh, I definitely want to play and not in New York. Like, I don't even know if I want to play yet, but New York would be my first option.
Rodgers also went on the rest of the interview to talk about how it's kind of been a year-by-year thing with him. And he mentioned last year when he went down with the torn Achilles, he was so focused on potentially returning last year, which we all know he got close to. Jets were just out of contention, but also was so focused on returning this season that he never even thought of retiring after the torn Achilles because he wanted to come back. He wanted to rehab, get back on the field as quick as possible, which he ultimately accomplished, returning to practice, of course, at the end of last season. But in terms of the year-by-year thing, this is kind of what Rodgers has been doing. And that's why I sort of do believe the whole Rodgers on this part of things is when has Rodgers over the last couple seasons, other than last year, which was completely different, other than last year, when has Rodgers had a year where you, over the last like 3 seasons, going back to kind of 2021, 2022, where 100% he was returning in 2025. He's taken it year by year. Heck, 2023 offseason, right? He ended that year with the Broncos, or the Packers. Jeez, the Broncos. Hackett comes over from the Broncos, so the Jets try and lure him here. That's where I was trying to get at. And he went into his darkness retreat, was 90% retired going into his darkness retreat, went into the darkness retreat, saw green, saw city, picture throwing touchdown passes to Garrett Wilson, came out of it and said, I'm a Jet. So this is a guy that really, over the last couple seasons, has never been committed to his future the year prior. He plays out the year and then readdresses in the offseason. You go back to 2022. When Hackett took over in Denver, there was a lot of speculation. He's going to go there. There was some question about if Rodgers still wanted to play in Green Bay. Skipped all the offseason stuff, waiting for a potential trade. The unknown. He ended up returning, and then, of course, going to the Jets ended ultimately the next year. But Rodgers has always kind of taken this year by year. And I think that's the same this season. He's telling you right now he doesn't know if he's going to play in 2025. And I sort of believe that because that's what he's been doing. And I've made this clear. I don't want Rodgers back in 2025. I don't. I know there's a portion of the fan base that believes in him to come back next year. I don't. I don't understand the infatuation with the Rodgers, 41 years old, coming back next year when you've watched him this season and he looks like a shell of himself. Not even a shell of himself. It's not even fair. He doesn't look like himself at all. This is the most washed he's looked in his career. And I know people will say, oh, well, bad coaching staff, whatever, better coaching staff. Look, the coaching staff's a problem, but Aaron Rodgers certainly isn't a solution. He's not the main problem, but he's not a solution. And I just can't fathom a coach wanting to come here with Rodgers next season, with all the baggage he brings, with a new play caller. I don't think Rodgers is going to want a new entire offensive staff. He also went on to say in this interview that he'll reevaluate where he's at in the offseason based on old brick, all that stuff. He's not going to want many changes on the offensive staff. He's not going to want to learn a new system. The Jets are going to have to mortgage their future because they're going to bring Rodgers back for his age 41 season. That makes no sense. So I don't, that's why I wouldn't personally bring him back. But this does also bring up a point that the New York Jets need to talk to Rodgers soon, especially if this is true and he's not saying fake stuff. Like if the report was actually true and Rodgers is just saying, I don't know, just to go against the report. If this is true, he does not know what he's going to do in 2025. They need to sit down with him day one of the offseason and say, look, what are you going to do? Do you want to trade? Or, are you going to stay here? Do you want to stay here? Or if the Jets say, we don't want you here, what do you want? You want to trade, cut? What do you want us to do with you? And if you do want to trade, we can maybe help you and trade you to a spot that you want to go. Or are you going to retire? Because this can't be something. And this is why I talk about the Green Bay stuff. This can't be something where we're sitting here in February and even March where we don't know what the future of Aaron Rodgers is. He's in another darkness retreat or somewhere on a retreat somewhere with no cell service, and we don't have a clue of what he's going to do. Because that's going to affect who they bring in at coach. That's going to affect who they bring in at general manager. That's going to affect everything. So this quote, not only does it go against The Athletic, but if he's unsure about 2025, the Jets need to sit down to him day one of the offseason. Right, their last game of the year, the day after, he needs to sit down and they need to figure out what his plan is. And no, you're not going to be able to go on a darkness retreat and decide. We need to figure this out now because we need to hire a general manager. We need to hire a head coach. And nobody's going to want to come here if there's an unknown at the quarterback. Nobody's going to want to come here, especially in free agency, if we still don't know what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. So it makes things a lot more interesting. I've said it multiple times. I'd go Tyrod, Jordan Travis, compete at camp. Tyrod, you sign him to a 2-year deal for a reason. He's significantly less baggage. And you go out there next year and you have those guys. Heck, you want to draft a quarterback this year? Fine. Have him sit, have him learn behind Tyrod. Kind of a three-way, competition. You don't draft a quarterback this year? Fine. Go Tyrod bridge year. Go Jordan Travis. You want to play Jordan Travis next year and figure out what you have in him? I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with bringing in a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers that's going to want his own coaching staff in here, that's not going to be willing to learn a new system back for 1-year window that's probably at best going to end 9-8. I don't want that. That's literally the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again. We just saw it happen this year with Rodgers. Insanity would be bringing him back for another year, expecting a different result when he's going to be a whole nother year older and another year removed from where he's been from his vintage self. So that's where I stand. Now, some other notes from this whole interview and the whole Athletic thing. He did say how he never turned down any scans to avoid missing time from an injury. There was a report out there that said that Aaron Rodgers turned down medical scans because he didn't want to get put on IR, didn't want to have to miss games, didn't want to see how bad his injuries actually were. He said today, I didn't put the clip in here because it's a longer one. It's like 2.5 minutes, and I've already shown 2 really long clips. But he said today how he works with the medical staff. They tell him what's going on. He kind of decides whether or not they tell him, if they think he should play through it or not. But he said he's never turned anything down. He listens to what he is told. So he went against that report as well. Again, there's always 2 sides to every story. Who knows who's right here? Who knows who's right? I do believe that he hasn't made a decision in 2025 because this is what Rodgers does. He takes it year by year. This is how his last 2 years were in Green Bay. 2022, there was unknowns. 2023, there was unknowns, which ultimately led to the trade to the Jets. Now there's going to be another unknown. Like, this is what Rodgers does at this point in his career. He reevaluates in the offseason. Do I still want to play? Do I still believe I can play? And where do I want to play? So I do believe that'll happen. And that's why the Jets have to be proactive. They probably won't because they're incompetent, but they should be. Now, 2 other notes from this interview that I thought were kind of funny. They're not funny, but it's just like a Jet thing. So Jordan Schultz a couple days ago reported that Rodgers and Woody, after initially reported that their relationship wasn't good, Woody didn't want to bring him back. Woody wanted to bench him in week 4 after the Broncos game. There was a report from Jordan Schultz that said the 2 actually just enjoyed dinner about a week ago in New York. Now, Rodgers actually said that was true, but it wasn't Woody Johnson who he had dinner with. It feels like it was probably Christopher Johnson because he went on and talked about how he's got a close relationship with Christopher. They talk a lot. I think Rodgers probably also knows Woody's probably going to go overseas. So if he would to come back, Christopher's going to be the day-to-day duty owner. Of course, like Woody did in his first term under Trump. So it could be Christopher or it could be Brick Johnson. Brick Johnson might be running everything at this point. So I thought that was funny. And one other thing, Jay Glazer over the weekend on Sunday at Fox on the pregame show said that Tuesday at practice last week, the day Douglas was fired, said that there was a helicopter that landed at Jets practice. Douglas turned to Ulbrich and said, if this is for me, it's been fun working with you, whatever. The two shared a laugh. Sure enough, Douglas got a tap on his shoulder to come inside. Woody pulled him in, told him he was fired. Rodgers said today that a helicopter landed, and I guess it was for Douglas. But I don't know if that was Rodgers kind of feeding into that or whatever. But he did say there was a helicopter that showed up during one of their practices, was kind of weird to happen mid-practice. And later that day, Joe Douglas was walking out the door with his belongings. I'm making that part up. I don't know if that was true. He did walk out the door, of course, but there was also a report that he was fishing later on in the day. He was so happy that he got fired, he was fishing. So many crazy reports, so much nonsense. There's going to be more. There's going to be more. I mean, heck, once this season ends and they blow it up and they fire people, I'm sure there's going to be reports on Rodgers' future. There's going to be rumors with Rodgers, and there's going to be a report that says Rodgers wants to play. There's going to be a report that says Rodgers doesn't want to play. There's going to be reports on when Rodgers might make his decision, what the Jets want to do. It's going to be so long, and it's probably going to be annoying, but you kind of got to strap in, Jets fans. I guess this is not what we signed up for, but this is what we received. So here we are. So that's that. That's the Rodgers stuff. I'm beat. I'm beat talking about it. I'm beat talking to I don't want to sound so repetitive on here. I probably said the word report about 10 times, 15 times because there's been so many. But I don't know. I don't want Rodgers back. I think you're delaying the inevitable. I think you blow it up now, get a head start on this rebuild. Bridge year quarterback. You want to draft a quarterback and have him sit by Tyrod, fine. Tyrod's less baggage. He's cheaper. I can't bring Rodgers back for another year. And I don't think you're going to attract the top option at coach if Rodgers is here. I just don't see it happening. I don't. So that's where we stand. But let me know what you think in the comments section down below. You want the man genius to return? Eric Mangini? What are your thoughts on that? And also, what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers' comments today? Basically denying everything that was in the Athletics report. I'm expecting a Aaron Rodgers text to Diana Rossini that says, lose the number. Just like Adam Schefter, of course. What was that, last year? So good times with Rodgers in the media. Never gets old. There's always something. So that'll do it. Appreciate you all so much for tuning in. Make sure to please like and subscribe. We'll talk to you guys soon. We've got a Seahawks analyst coming on tomorrow to talk Jets Seahawks preview. So stay tuned for that. And enjoy your holidays. And we've got a lot more content coming your way the rest of the week heading into Sunday's action. So stay tuned. As always, appreciate the support. Till next time, JETS, 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 Jets.